In 1968, a young bride received a letter from her husband in Vietnam. It arrived 3 weeks after his funeral. Inside were only 5 words that would change her life forever. But 50 years later, when her granddaughter discovered a hidden box in the attic, they found 17 more letters that were never supposed to be opened. This is the true story of Margaret and James Sullivan, and the promise that survived a war. June 12, 1967, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Margaret Rose Thompson became Margaret Sullivan on a perfect summer day. She was 20 years old, wearing her mother's wedding dress, and marrying her high school sweetheart under an oak tree that had stood for 100 years. James Sullivan was 22, fresh out of basic training, with 3 weeks before deployment. He wore his army dress uniform, standing so tall and proud that Margaret thought he could touch the sky. Everyone smiled for the photos. Everyone danced at the reception. Everyone pretended that James wasn't shipping out to Vietnam in 21 days. On their wedding night, in a small motel room off Highway 20, James made Margaret a promise. "I'll write you every single day," he whispered, holding her close. "Even if it's just a sentence. Even if it's just 'I love you.' You'll never go a day without hearing from me." Margaret pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Promise me something else. Anything. Promise me you'll come home." James was quiet for a long moment. Then he kissed the top of her head. "I promise I'll never leave you, no matter what. Do you believe me?" "I believe you." It was the last promise he would ever make. James deployed to Vietnam on July 3, 1967. True to his word, letters started arriving within a week. At first, they came in bunches 3 or 4 at a time, military mail being what it was. Margaret would sit on her parents' porch and read them over and over until she had them memorized. July 8, 1967. Dear Maggie, it's hotter than hell here and twice as loud. But when I close my eyes, I'm back under that oak tree with you. I can smell your perfume. I can hear you laugh. That's what keeps me going. All my love, your Jim. August 14th, 1967. Maggie, my love. Today I saw the most beautiful sunset. Orange and pink and purple, like someone spilled paint across the sky. I wished you could see it. Then I realized you probably saw the same sunrise this morning. We're looking at the same sky, just 12 hours apart. Doesn't that make the world feel smaller? Closer? I love you, Jim. October 29th, 1967. Dear Maggie, something happened today that I can't write about. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I need you to know that thinking of you is what got me through it. Your smile, your voice, the way you dance barefoot in the kitchen. You're my reason, Maggie, for everything. Come home to me, Jim. The letters kept coming, through fall, through winter, through the Tet Offensive in February 1968, when Margaret didn't sleep for 3 days straight, waiting by the radio, praying. And then, on March 15th, 1968, they stopped. March 22nd, 1968, 4:47 p.m. Margaret was working at the Cedar Falls Public Library, reshelving books in the children's section, when she looked up and saw them through the window. 2 Army officers in dress uniforms, walking up the front path of her parents' house across the street. The books fell from her hands. She ran. By the time she got there, her mother was already crying on the porch. The officers stood stiff and formal, holding their hats. "Mrs. Sullivan," the taller one said, "we regret to inform you ... The words washed over her like water. Killed in action. Mortar attack. Died instantly. Honorable service. Grateful nation." Margaret didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, frozen, thinking, he promised. He promised he'd never leave me. When? She finally whispered, "March 15th, ma'am. We're very sorry. 1 week." He'd been gone for 1 week, and she hadn't known. She'd been walking around, living, breathing, existing in a world where James was already dead. The funeral was on March 28, 1968. Closed casket. 21-gun salute. A folded flag pressed into her hands. Margaret was a widow at 20 years old. April 11, 1968. Margaret was sitting at her childhood desk, surrounded by James's letters, when her mother brought in the mail. "Honey," her mother said softly, There's one more." The envelope was wrinkled, stained with something dark. The postmark read March 14th, one day before he died. It had taken 4 weeks to reach her. Margaret's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. No long letter. No stories about sunsets or promises about the future. Just 5 words in James's handwriting. "Look under the oak tree." Margaret's heart stopped. She ran. Down the stairs, out the door, across the yard to the oak tree where they'd been married. Her mother and father followed, calling after her, but she couldn't stop. At the base of the tree, hidden in the roots, was a metal box wrapped in canvas. Inside were 17 sealed letters, each one addressed to Margaret, each one marked with a date in the future. The first one said, "Open on our first anniversary, June 12, 1968. The last one said, "Open on your 40th birthday, March 8, 1987. And tucked underneath all of them was a note in James's handwriting. "Maggie, my love, if you're reading this, then I broke my promise. I'm so sorry. I wanted to give you forever. But if forever isn't possible, I wanted to give you this. 1 letter for every year I should have been there. Open them when you need me most. I'll be there, I promise. All my love, forever and always, your Jim." Margaret collapsed against the tree, clutching the box, and finally she cried. Margaret Sullivan never remarried. She became a teacher, traveled to Paris, learned to paint, built a full life in a world without James. But every year, on the dates he'd marked, she opened a letter. June 12, 1968, first anniversary. "Happy anniversary, my love. I know I'm not there to dance with you, but I need you to dance anyway. Put on that record, At Last by Etta James, and dance in the kitchen like you used to. Dance for both of us. And know that wherever I am, I'm dancing too." December 25th, 1970. Christmas. "Merry Christmas, Maggie. I hope you put up our tree. I hope you're with family. I hope you're not alone. But if you are alone, know this. I'm right there with you. In the lights, in the snow, in every Christmas song. Love doesn't end, Maggie. It just changes form." March 8th, 1975. Her 28th birthday. "Happy birthday, beautiful. 28. God, I wish I could see you. Are you still taking sugar in your coffee? Do you still sing off key in the shower? Do you still scrunch your nose when you laugh? I hope you do. Don't change, Maggie. Stay you. Stay wonderful." Some letters made her laugh. Some made her cry. All of them reminded her why she'd loved him. The letters guided her through grief, through anger, through acceptance, through joy. When she doubted herself, she opened a letter and found encouragement. When she felt alone, she opened a letter and found companionship. When she forgot why she kept going, she opened a letter and remembered. March 8th, 1987. Margaret's 40th birthday. She was a grandmother now. Her daughter Sarah, named after James's mother, had given her 2 beautiful grandchildren. Life was good, full, different than she'd imagined, but good. There was 1 letter left. Margaret sat in her living room, surrounded by family, and opened the final envelope. Inside were 3 pages, the longest letter James had ever written. "My dearest Maggie, if you're reading this, you've made it to 40. God, I'm so proud of you. I knew you would. I knew you were strong enough to build a life even after losing me. And I need you to know something. I wanted you to. I never wanted you to stop living because I stopped living. I wanted you to be happy, to love, to dance in the kitchen, to see Paris, to become a mother, a grandmother, to fill your years with joy. Because that's what you gave me, Maggie. Joy. In the short time we had together, you gave me a lifetime of joy. And I'm going to tell you something I should have told you in person. It's okay to let me go. It's okay to move forward. It's okay to remember me as a chapter in your beautiful life, not the whole story. You were my whole story, Maggie. But I was lucky enough to be part of yours. Thank you for keeping me alive in your heart. Thank you for opening these letters. Thank you for dancing even when I couldn't be there to spin you around. You've honored me more than you'll ever know. Now I need you to do one last thing for me. Live. Really. Truly live. Love if you find it. Laugh every single day. Be outrageously, impossibly happy. And 50 years from now, when you're 90 and surrounded by people who love you, remember the boy who loved you first. Remember the oak tree. Remember the promise. I never left you, Maggie. I never will. All my love, forever and always, your Jim. Margaret closed the letter, tears streaming down her face. Her daughter took her hand. Mom, are you okay? Margaret smiled through the tears. Yes, I think I finally am. Margaret Sullivan lived to be 91 years old. She never did remarry, but she dated. She traveled the world. She taught 3 generations of students. She painted beautiful landscapes that hung in galleries across Iowa. She kept all 17 letters in the metal box under her bed. When she died peacefully in her sleep in 2018, her family found instructions in her will. Bury her in her wedding dress under the oak tree, next to James. At her funeral, her granddaughter Emily read the last letter aloud. And when they lowered Margaret into the ground, next to a headstone that had waited 50 years for its companion, Emily tucked something into her grandmother's hands. A sealed envelope, addressed to James. No one knows what it said. But on the day they buried Margaret Sullivan, witnesses reported something impossible. The old oak tree, which had been dead for 15 years, suddenly bloomed. White flowers in March, covering every branch. Some said it was a miracle. Others said it was coincidence. But Emily knew the truth. Her grandmother had finally kept her promise. She'd come home. The 17 letters from James Sullivan are now housed at the Cedar Falls Historical Society in Iowa. Margaret's daughter donated them in 2019 with one request: that they be shared with the world so that no love story is ever truly forgotten. Over 50,000 people have visited the exhibit. Many bring letters of their own to loved ones they've lost, to promises they're still keeping. The oak tree still blooms every March, defying every law of nature. Scientists have no explanation. But the people of Cedar Falls know some promises are too strong to break. Even death can't stop them.